a Carnivore Diet Meal Plan. Let's figure it out together. Hey, what's shaking, bacon? I hope you're doing well. If you like this video, please do me a favor and give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I really appreciate the support. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. So anyway, I want to get into the topic of today, a Carnivore Diet Meal Plan. Now, everyone's wondering when they start a carnivore diet, or even if they're maintaining a carnivore diet, or even if they've been doing a carnivore diet for a long time and they're hitting plateaus, what they can do, how they can figure out what they need to do to help get them out of their current funk. If you're just starting a carnivore diet, then the issue is you don't know where to begin. The beautiful thing about a carnivore diet is all you have to do is eat meat. It's simple as that. It's not complicated. It's one of the simplest ways of eating you've ever done. Grab some steak, grab some chicken, whatever it is that you like. I highly recommend fatty meat, but eat meat. Cut out the dairy if you need to, and I'll get into that in a minute. Eat all the meat you want. Eat till you're satiated, eat till you're satisfied, and then eat again when you're hungry. For the vast majority of people, carnivore works really well that way. There's even some people, and I did this myself when I was doing an experiment about 1.5 to 2 years ago, the more I ate, the more weight I lost. But that stopped working after a while for me, even though I was very active at the time. I put on lean mass and lost only fat over a period of 4 months. And like when you exercise, I think for some people, you have to change it up a little bit. So don't complicate it. Eat whatever you want. Stay away from restaurant foods. Stay away from anything pre-cooked or anything pre-packaged. Buy meat raw, cook it, eat it, repeat. It's as simple as that. So because of that, there's no portion sizes. There's no measuring anything. You figure out after a while what you're going to feel comfortable eating day to day, meal by meal. The nice thing about that is most people start falling into maybe just 2 meals a day or even 1 meal a day when they do carnivore after a while. Usually it takes maybe a month or two before you start falling into that. You start to just get to the point where you're satisfied. You learn your hunger cues and when you need to eat and also how much you want to eat. And from there, you just follow your instincts. Now, if you're putting on weight, that can be pretty frustrating, right? But keep in mind, maybe you're putting on some lean mass because your protein volume's gone up. So pay attention to your waistline when that happens. Now, you're allowed to have dairy and cheese on this way of eating, but if you notice you're putting on weight, you might want to cut that down or cut that out. Simple as that. That tends to have an effect on people when they're trying to lose weight. So what do you do when simplicity stops working? So like I said, we could cut out the dairy, but what else can you do? Well, you can start going with shorter eating windows. Most carnivores do that anyway. Like I said, you start getting down to the point where you're doing 1 meal a day, sometimes 2 meals a day. I found depending on the day, 1 or 2 meals a day was typically good for me. I felt satiated all the time. If I had chicken at lunch, even a large amount of chicken, I was really hungry by dinner. But if I had that same volume in red meat, I was fine for the rest of the day. I could have dinner, but if I didn't have it, it was no big deal. It didn't bother me at all. So first of all, if you're not getting the results you want, give it time. Sometimes your body adjusts. We want to make sure you've given it enough time to adjust to what you've been doing. Now, sometimes the adjustment can be the cause of the problem, but for the most part, you want to just give it time. If you've plateaued for 2 weeks or a month, that's not a plateau. It's not. Your body's just adjusting. When you plateau for 2, 3, or 4 months, that's when you have to start kind of going into the next level of carnivore, which, like I said, most people don't have to worry about. You just have to figure out what other avenues you can go to adjust your meal plan. And we're going to get into that a little bit more now. First of all, I want to make sure you're not eating too much or too little. Some people do this way of eating and they're only getting like 1,000 calories a day, maybe 1,500 calories a day. Well, that's great if you're a 12-year-old child. That's great if you are 4'6" and you're a woman and you need to get down to a small amount of weight because 86 pounds is your ideal body weight, then maybe. But for the most part, if you're doing less than 2,000 calories a day, ballpark, as far as the amount of food that you're taking in each day, you really need to adjust it because you don't want your body to go into starvation mode. As well, if you're eating too much, it'll reflect on the scale and you'll probably start putting on weight. Sometimes that's a necessary evil for your body to change its composition and how it's digesting the food that you're eating so that it can adapt to, say, like I went through in the last little while, a higher fat diet. I initially put on weight and then I started losing weight. So assuming you've done all those things, now we have to start looking at some other things. And if you're still at a stall and it's been a few months, get your fasting insulin checked. It's probably one of the first things to go to. If you have other problems that you are aware of, like other autoimmune disorders, or you're fighting some serious health condition or some underlying infection, then you have to get that looked at, of course, before you worry about your insulin. But one of the best places to go to first is your fasting insulin. Get your doctor to get your fasting insulin tested. What I've been doing recently, and it's worked well, even though I took a giant step back before I started moving forward, was switching to high fat. And that's not uncommon for people. They need to tweak what they're doing, and going to a high fat diet, and I mean really high fat. We're talking 90% of my food intake was fat calories, and the rest was protein. And I'm not one for low protein, but everyone has to find their sweet spot. And I'm going to make a video about this later on with protein. You have to find your sweet spot with protein. The long and short of it is, as we get older, our bodies don't seem to manage protein as well as a fuel. It's not a good fuel for energy expenditure, but it's a good fuel as a building block, and our body just doesn't absorb it as well, and it doesn't use it as well either. So here's a weird situation where you might have to lower your protein because your body's not working with it really well. So you want to make your body adapt to it, but you don't want to keep it there for too long. And here's the key: you have to do something else. If you're ever doing a moderate to low protein diet, you have to do this other thing, and we're going to get into that at the end of the video because it's actually not carnivore. So if high fat is something you've tried, and give it 2 or 3 months. If that doesn't work, try lower fat. See what you feel best with. If you start getting brain fog and your hair starts thinning and your sleep starts suffering, then low protein isn't what you want, because that's what's causing that. Then low fat isn't what you want. You got to make sure you're giving your body the fuel it needs to lose weight. You have to eat to lose weight. You just need the proper type of fuel. If you've done all these other things that we've discussed, maybe at this point you might want to try intermittent fasting. Doesn't really work well with me, but it works well for most people. It just doesn't work well for me because of my health history. I know some people that do alternate day fat fasts, and I've done that myself. I met a carnivore get together last year, and he was telling me he didn't start losing tremendous weight on a carnivore diet till he did alternate day fasting. So he'd eat whatever he wanted in a day. The next day he would fast, and he got down to a very healthy, normal body weight. And I think he's in his early 50s or so. And he was a great guy. I love talking to him. I hope to see him again this summer. So longer windows of time between meals might be something that you find beneficial. And what's that going to do? It's going to manage your insulin. So if insulin is your problem, which it most likely is at that point if you're not losing weight, then that's something that most people can take advantage of. Another thing you can incorporate, which is opposite of that, is multiple small meals in a day. Multiple small meals keeps your insulin low all day long. And that might be something that might work best for you. It's something I've been implementing lately, and I started getting amazing results till I screwed around with it. I don't mind that because I've started that multiple meal a day on a high fat 90-10 carnivore diet, and I'm sure I'm going to get the results that I wanted, just like I started getting near the end of that challenge. Now we've come to the point where this is what I think is one of the most important things you can do to assist a carnivore diet. If you're doing a carnivore diet and you're not getting the results you want, you're banging your head off the wall and you're trying to figure out what the problem is, you might have to keep in mind you're just not active enough. Simple as that. Now, I've been active. I've been doing weight training and walking, and I still hit plateaus. I hit plateaus for a long window of time. I've incorporated all those other things, and I was still hitting plateaus for long windows of time. But along with that exercise, what I eventually did was I tweaked my carnivore diet with the exercise that I was already doing. I like doing weight training and walking, and it was working extremely well in combination with a high-fat carnivore diet. It took a while. It took 2 months before I started getting any results. And in the last 5 days, I got tremendous results. It was amazing. I lost 25 pounds in under a week. Now you're thinking, that's impossible. Well, not when you're 350 plus pounds. I actually put on weight doing a high-fat diet before I started losing it. So I want you to keep in mind, it's not always linear. It's not always a straight path going from here down to here with your weight loss. It does this a lot of times. So I want you to keep this in mind. There's no specific meal plan you can do. In the beginning, it's just about having enough meat to keep you satiated and then eat again when you're hungry. Don't let yourself get to the point where you're hungry again. Don't do intermittent fasting in the beginning, but don't let yourself get hungry again so that you might risk going off a carnivore diet. Stick to the carnivore diet, be consistent with it. Consistency is the most important part of the carnivore diet. Thanks a lot for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.